Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We are continuing on our Keeping the Dream Alive journey, a college and career readiness event sponsored by the Santa Clara County Office of Education. My name is Jamie Koo, and I'm your Parent Engagement Specialist. Today, we're so fortunate to have Daniel Hasagawa, who is the Business Development Manager at Excite Credit Union. Before he was at Excite Credit Union, he's had several managerial and training roles with several banks and credit unions. But little did I know, prior to all of his finance work, he was actually a teacher. So thank you, Daniel. We're so fortunate to have you partner with us and bring financial literacy classes to SCCOE.
Thank you, Jamie. Excite Credit Union is proud to be supporting these workshops for the Parent Engagement Program. We're also happy to sponsoring the Rose Recta Scholarships for deserving students in the Santa Clara County Office of Education. We also have another benefit we'll share with everyone at the end of this program. But right now, I'm proud to introduce our presenter, Katie Fitzgerald from the Financial Aid Office of Mission College in Santa Clara. Katie has over 20 years of experience in financial aid. She currently works with some of the most vulnerable populations, including foster youth, housing insecure, and unaccompanied youth. Katie will be sharing a lot of information, so let's get started. Katie, the program is yours.
Thank you. And I just want to say thank you to everybody who's joining us now as we record this live session, as well as those who are going to be watching it in the future. The most important thing is understanding about financial aid, so you understand why it's important to apply for it, and that there's a lot of money there to help those that are not otherwise able to support their children in going to a higher education. So let's get started. First, we have the programs that are under the federal side, under our government. U.S. Department of Education is the one who oversees these programs. And when we look at grant, like the Pell Grant, Supplemental Grant, Teach Grant, when you hear grant in the title of a program, as well as scholarships, it is really considered gift aid, not intended to be repaid. So that's an important feature that we also want families to understand. Grants and scholarships are what we call gift aid and really not intended to be repaid. So when we look at the Pell Grant, this is our current amount for the current academic year, $6,345. And this really is based on 9 months of going to school. So this is a per year amount, not over 4 years of college. So that's the exciting part as well. And it does have a lifetime eligibility of up to 6 years full-time equivalent. So what does that mean? It means that students who may go part-time, it's going to extend that 6 years time frame. So it really allows them a longer time to be able to get that first bachelor's degree, which really is the level of support that grants will go to, is up to that first bachelor's degree, and then they will be considered a graduate. Supplemental grant is really for those that are really excessive financial need. So really they need to be Pell Grant eligible is the number one. But the other thing is this has limited funding, much like our work study program. So with that, we want the earliest filers and the most needy students to be able to receive these awards. And that's how we have things built into our system that is going to provide that algorithm for the earliest filers and those that have the most financial need. So supplemental grant will pay various amounts based on the system, the college system, but it can be up to $4,000 a year. And then we have the Teach Grant. This is really going to be specific to students in their junior and senior year at university. So not at the community colleges. That may be their first 2 years of their undergraduate work. So it's really once they've decided that, yes, teaching is going to be in their future, and it's another great opportunity to stack that financial aid. When we look at work study, this is another option for students. It's going to allow them to work part-time, typically 18 to 20 hours per week maximum, because everybody knows that with a work study student, their academics come first. So it will always want to make sure that they have limited hours of work and not excessive. And so it's a great opportunity for them to get some work experience, get some of those references for future jobs, and really start understanding how, it is important to have a job and learn new skills and things like that. And really hiring departments, which are typically on campus, love work study students because it's getting paid for out of a Department of Education fund, not their department budget. So it's a great opportunity, and if it helps students keep their student loan debt down, this is another way to, circumvent that. And then as we look at student loans, there are different types. We encourage families to first look at the direct student loan program that again is under Department of Education for the best benefits during repayment, fixed interest rates, things like that. And it's variable because you're able to have it as an undergraduate student and a graduate student. And there's also a program where in addition to the student borrower, there is a plus loan, parent loan for undergraduate students where the parent can become the borrower as well. So again, stackable. And when you start looking at all this, this is really the start of what an award offer can look like for financial aid. All of these can be stackable. You can have a Pell Grant, a supplemental grant, be offered a work study position, be offered a student loan. You're able to accept and decline things. Of course, you would not want to do that on a grant, but this gives you an idea. So now we're going to take a look at our state aid and see, again, where does that come into play, and be able to stack that in addition to the federal funding. So we have our funding coming from the California Student Aid Commission. And again, our biggest program is Cal Grant, hence named after our state. There are different types, A, B, C. And so with A, that is going to be at a university only. B is going to be at community colleges and the universities. And then C is more vocational geared. So it'll be at some of the specialty schools as well as community colleges, because we do have career technical programs that meet the requirements for us to participate in this. So when you look at first the university up to 12,570, that is typically at a UC, a University of California amount. And then typically the private schools can be around 9,000 to 10,000. And then the community colleges you see at the 1,672, but we also have a supplemental amount, which can be an additional up to 4,000. And that is very close to what the CSU amount is, the California State University amount. So the thing with Cal Grant is you really need to meet the California state deadline, which is March 2nd. And this is for both the federal application and our California DREAM Act application. So we really want to make sure that students are filing for this consideration of this grant program. It does have a lifetime eligibility up to 4 years. So again, students that opt to go to community college, they can either receive the Cal Grant or put it on hold while they're doing their community college education for their first 2 years, and then have it become active when they transfer. Would I suggest doing that? No. If you're eligible to receive it while you're attending community college, then absolutely take the first 2 years with us and receive the Cal Grant. And when you transfer, you'll still have your 2 years left when you're doing your upper division coursework. The other thing that they have through the state is the middle class scholarship. Now, this is only with the California State University system as well as the University of California system, so CSU and UC. And it's really geared to assist with their mandatory fees and tuition. And these are typically the maximums it will go up to. It's really trying to assist with up to 40% of those fees. And what all of these are really trying to do is help families with their out-of-pocket expenses. So when we look at the income level, yes, it's looking at maximum income and assets for families, currently up to 184,000. So if you're not eligible for Cal Grant for some reason based on their income standards, The middle class scholarship typically helps families whose income levels may be over $100,000 up to $184,000. The enrollment and fee waivers are pretty much what they sound like. They are going to save families their out-of-pocket expenses that are geared for enrollment fees and tuition. And so you'll be able to not pay out of pocket for the coursework, which is in itself a huge savings. We also have the EOP, EOPS programs at both community colleges and universities, and that can vary up to $600. And that is based on the system typically, as well as the CARE program, which is for parenting students that is housed under the EOP or EOPS programs. So those are again state funded, and they provide academic support in addition to the financial support. So it's a great opportunity for students. And then last, we have the Child Development Grant. And again, this is going to be for students who are specifically going into that major, early childhood education, child development, that kind of thing. And it will pay either at a community college or at a university. Okay. And when we glance at fee and tuition waivers, just gives you an example of what they can be called at the different systems. So the community colleges have our California College Promise Grant fee waiver. And again, this is going to waive the $46 per unit fees that we typically charge per unit. So a typical class of 3 units can be $138. And now for that one class, students and their parents will not be paying out of pocket for that if they're eligible for this fee waiver. So even having this as the only type of financial aid you may be eligible for, it helps you, again, just with huge savings on not paying out of pocket. The California State University has their State University Grant, which is very similar to the community college fee waiver. And then, of course, the UC system has their Blue and Gold plan, which again will help students with out-of-pocket expenses. And of course, independent colleges offer lots of grants and scholarships that will also help with application fees and actually fee waivers in the form of scholarships that assist with tuition. Okay, and a lot of promises going on with the California community colleges. So we also, as you just saw, we have the California College Promise Grant fee waiver. But in addition to that, we also have from our California Community Colleges State Chancellor's Office, what we call the Promise Program. So all the community colleges have this, and this is really geared for first-time students. So whether you're eligible for that fee waiver or not, this is a way that, again, will ensure that all students and families have the opportunity, if they are a first-time student, to, again, not pay out of pocket for their classes. And so this is really important. They can file either the federal application or the California application. But there are requirements, and it's going to vary by college, but it really is going to allow them to not pay out of pocket for usually up to the first 2 years at a community college before they transfer or get their associate degree. And again, if they are not eligible for the fee waiver, this is going to really take care of those fees. But if you're eligible for the fee waiver, then it could be considered like a scholarship and would assist with books and supplies and those types of things. So again, how the school set it up, we have a little flexibility, so that can vary. But again, really geared for students to be able, first-time students to be able to attend community college for free for the first 2 years. Okay, one of the areas that is really overlooked a lot is scholarships, because it is additional research and oftentimes an additional application, as well as maybe getting letters of recommendation from people. So this is okay. And you're going to even find out from our Excite Credit Union person, you know, really scholarships are easier to come by than most people think. Starting a master essay is a good start because you can reuse it for different applications you use. start thinking outside the box of where you would want to look for scholarships. Oftentimes, not just the exiting high school, but the college you plan to attend. It can be, a credit union like Excite. It can be your parents' employer or even the student's employer if they work. It can be an insurance carrier. It can be a service-based organization like Kiwanis. So there's lots of different areas to start thinking about. Even our large banking institutions also offer scholarships. So really start looking in your own neighborhood as to what you might be tied to, or even that you might be eligible for. You don't always have to be a customer to be able to apply for their scholarships. So, and the timeline is pretty much the same as you're applying for financial aid, and we're going to find out when that is. But just remember, scholarships are not always about the straight A student, so not always merit, but it can also be a combination of maybe merit as well as financial need, but whoever is providing the money gets to determine the criteria. So a lot of times it's not always about the straight A student, but students who actually have had some disadvantages and could really benefit from the scholarship providing the higher education. Okay, general eligibility criteria. So as you've heard me talk about, we do have two different types of applications. So for the federal application, students themselves actually need to have a permanent Social Security number, and that's what's determining which application they're going to file. So for the federal application, known as the FAFSA, student has the permanent Social Security number, but for those students who do not have a permanent Social Security number, they're able to file through the California DREAM Act, regardless of their parents' status and regardless whether their parents have a Social Security number or not, does not come into play for either application. So we really are focusing on students who are really planning to live in California and stay in the US for permanent reasons. There is the males between 18 to 25 do need to register for selective service. So even if they're not 18 yet, but they're maybe a senior in high school, they are encouraged to go ahead and register, and it will basically put them fully into the system within 30 days of their 18th birthday. And while this is a requirement for either filing the DREAM Act or the FAFSA application and receiving financial aid, it does not by any means mean that they would have to serve in the military. It just means that it is an identifier should we ever have a national state of emergency as a starting point. It does not mean that they would have to serve in the military. And I want to make that clear because I know families can be nervous about that and understanding what selective service is about. All right, and the other tie to being eligible is really having that high school completion status. So whether they're getting it from completing high school, the general equivalency diploma, if they've tested out through the California high school proficiency exam or have been homeschooled, whatever that equivalent is, they need to have that. They need to have completed high school. And so that's very important in order to receive the financial aid. Also, enrollment levels. A lot of the myths behind financial aid is one, it has to always be paid back, which now you know, if it's a grant or scholarship, typically it does not. One of the other myths here is having to be a full-time student in order to receive financial aid. We're going to blow that myth right up now. And so most of the programs will kick in for payment if they are enrolled typically at least half-time. Some of the financial aid programs will actually pay even as low as taking, one class. And so it just depends on the program. But again, the government understands that students cannot always be full-time and be successful. And so they allow a lot of the programs to pay out at a half-time status, which is very helpful. There are specialized programs like EOP, EOPS that do encourage full-time enrollment, but there are exceptions to that for different populations like students with disabilities. So, again, it's based on the program and enrollment level. But we always encourage for the student to be successful at the enrollment level for whatever they need to do. And then also, one of the surprising things seems to be making satisfactory academic progress. So this really boils down to students really having 2/3 of what they attempt completed, both current and cumulative, as well as holding a 2.0 GPA. They also need to be enrolled in an eligible program of study. So claiming undeclared is not going to work at the community colleges, and it will work only temporarily at a university. So they really need to focus on what do they want to major in. So this is really taking a quick look at the federal applications webpage. You can see that it will translate from English into Spanish, as well as this can be a first-time user or a returning user. And this is where everybody's going to start. This is the website, www.fafsa.gov. It stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. And that's very important because you want to make sure that you are in the right website and not paying a fee to complete what we consider a free application. And they really want to make sure that providing that opportunity is going to get more students and their families to complete this process. There are also FAFSA announcements. So a lot of times they will put information on their webpage about, using the IRS data retrieval tool, different things like that if the system is going to go down for maintenance. So always make sure to check the announcements. And then they also have gone into the age of technology, and they are really encouraging students to be able to access this through their mobile phone. As we know, many students, this is their form of technology to do everything. So they also made an application for students to be able to download and actually complete their financial aid application. There's also different things that they can do even after they've submitted their application and down the road. So they can check loan status, they can check their Pell Grant usage to see how close they are to their lifetime usage. So there's a lot of different things that are beneficial. The studentaid.gov is a great resource just to check different things out, access the direct loan promissory note, things like that. So, and actually this is an application that parents can also use to complete their portion on the financial aid application. So who is completing the application? Typically, we really want the student who is the one going to college to be the driver of the application. And so if they are a first-time user and they do not have an FSA ID, which is Federal Student Aid Identification, this is the electronic signature for the student to submit. And we really want them to create this at the beginning of the application. And at least one parent is typically going to need the same thing, okay? And again, if parents do not have a permanent Social Security number, they will have zeros put in for their Social Security number and be able to print a signature page at the end of the application process and would not create an FSA ID. So it's really, again, student and parent for the app ID and electronic signature process would need to have that permanent Social Security number. So this is what it looks like to create. And if you see that blue question mark, you can always click on here for additional help anywhere throughout the application if you're not sure what the question truly means and how to answer it. And as we look at that, this is where parents would have their opportunity to create their FSA ID, at least one of them. And this is where they would have the opportunity to link over to the IRS to have whatever base year income that the application wants. It's usually looking 2 years back from the date that the student would be starting school. So right now we're looking for students applying to the fall 2021 academic year, and the current base year would be 2019 as an example. So they will be able to create their FSA ID and link over to the IRS website directly. A couple of identifiers would be required, and then they're able to have that information transferred right back into the FAFSA, which really helps them with that information of what do I need to provide. But the FAFSA is also very clear about what line to look at for that information if not everybody is able to do the transfer. So some families may not be able to, and that's okay. So it is going to tell them exactly what line to look on to reference that information, but using the data retrieval tool is the easiest way to go. And then one of the things that comes up a lot that is, you know, families are unsure about is really assets. And yes, for the most part, they are going to be asked about information that is current. So what is the money in the bank under, you know, checking and savings? What kind of investments might you have? Real estate beyond the home you live in? Is there any stocks or bonds or things like that? Is there a student's educational savings plan, like a 529 or Coverdale? So all those things that are current are also going to get asked about. Things they do not want you to include is anything that is tied to a retirement plan. So that's very important too. So you want to make sure that, again, this will pop up when you click on a blue button in the asset information. And that way you can be sure specifically what to report and what not to report. We don't want you over-reporting what information that is not needed, because that can be a deterrent for their eligibility. Okay, and we do have the California DREAM Act. So this is really geared to students that do not have that permanent Social Security number and are not able to apply through the federal application. With the federal application, of course, it's going to consider students automatically for federal and our California state aid because they indicate they live in California. And that information is shared with our California Student Aid Commission. So those that are completing the California DREAM Act will only be considered for our California state aid, but that, as you know, was a lot of different programs. That's their fee waivers, that's the Cal Grant program, that's the middle class scholarship, you know, so that's the California Community College Promise program. So there's lots of different aid that is still left on the table, EOPS, scholarships. So we want to make sure that students know completing the DREAM Act is still okay, and regardless of their status in the US. And the application actually flows very similar to the FAFSA. And so it makes it very easy, again, for students and their parents to be able to complete it. There's a lot of smart logic built into these applications. Okay, and then for some that may be looking to go to a private school, our California public schools do not require this application, but some privates do. It is the CSS profile. And you can either find the application via the College Board or oftentimes a link from the university's webpage. And really being sure if it's required, because it is a fee-based application, so it's not a free one, like the FAFSA or the DREAM Act. You want to make sure if the college actually requires it. And the way to do that is by looking on their financial aid webpage to see what applications are required. Do I need to complete this? Because not all private schools require it either. So you can either check the College Board for a listing of colleges that require it, or check the college that you, the student is actually applying to make sure. It does have a lot of help. It has helplines. It also has the on-demand webinar that can help you get through the process. Okay, so the dependency status is really determining whose information is getting reported on the applications. For most of our students that are coming out of high school, they are going to be providing parent income information. And so this is typically, as you might note, it's going to be equivalent to about age 23, 24. And so it's really the government's nice way of saying, hey, we want to look at families' resources first, and what they're not able to afford, we will be happy to provide our financial aid assistance. And so many students will be able to check this box or any one of these boxes, and that is going to make them independent and not have to require parent information. But again, for the most part, students are going to be providing their parent information up until about age 23, 24, or until they say that they are working on a master's or higher program. So there are exceptions. Some could be that they have been in foster care. They've been a ward of the dependency court under the age of 18. They could be in a legal guardianship, which means they are with people that are not their biological parents through a court decision. So there are some different areas. Student is married, student has dependents, but for the most part, our graduating high school students are going to be considered dependent and providing parent information. And parents can be adoptive parents. It can be parents that live together but never got married, but both parents' information would be required on the financial aid application. If a parent is separated, then it would be the custodial parent, even if they are not divorced. And if a parent has remarried, then the step parents' information would also come into play on the application. Okay, understanding what all this means, how are we being determined eligible? So really, the application process is trying to find the financial strength of the family and their ability to contribute to their children's education. So with the simple equation of cost of attendance minus expected family contribution as determined by the application process equals how much financial aid can we support them with. And the cost of attendance, this is really what makes up a cost of attendance. So it's variables, and this comes with the guidance from Department of Education. And because all students need to be treated equally, it doesn't always allow for the room and board based on what state we live in, unfortunately. But for the most part, it's going to be determined by how they answer their housing opportunity, which is either going to be living with a parent or relative, I'll be living on campus, or I'll be living off campus. And so what we're looking at is an example of a student budget that would be living at home or with a parent or relative and not considered paying rent. And as you can see, there is still a room and board allowance, whether they say they're living with a parent and not paying rent, it's still an allowance because Department of Education understands that students, regardless of their housing situation, still have these incurred expenses potentially. And so that's really good that they are taking this into consideration because whether they're actually going to pay this out or not is not the issue. It just is building that because this helps us build how much financial aid we can get. So sometimes having a higher cost of attendance is better, and you'll see how that plays out. But the fact that they put these allowances in there is very important. And some students that may be considered independent can almost get up to $24,000 per year in financial aid support. So we really appreciate how they look at this. And this would be, again, an example of different types of college systems. So we have a community college example, we have a CSU example, and we have a private university example. So if the expected family contribution was determined based on assets and income to be $4,000, regardless whether the student was at any of these systems, it shows that they still have financial need. Okay, and this is an example of all of them if they were living at home. So again, this is a great opportunity to show that there's always going to be financial need for most students regardless. And then again, don't forget that at Santa Clara University, the cost of attendance has things built in there. This is not really what it costs to go to Santa Clara, but it's really with that room and board and the personal miscellaneous expenses built in there. So really don't think that these are actual out-of-pocket expenses. Okay, and special circumstances. So this can occur typically anytime after the application is initially filed. And because they are often looking 2 years back on base income information, sometimes we know that that changes. And so you can talk to a financial aid office, potentially where the student's planning to attend, and be able to have adjustments reviewed. And it is on a case by case. But initially, the financial aid applications have to be submitted with the information as it requests it. So we know, using 2019 as an example base year for the application year of 2021, this upcoming fall, it means that there's a lot of changes that can happen. So in that 2-year time frame, we know that if both parents were working, maybe one parent is no longer working, maybe parents separated. So there's a lot of changes that can happen. Maybe another child came into the family, or another dependent that the family is responsible for. So there can be any number of things that affect the financial stability and the resources of the family, that what was then on what you're asking about the application is not our current stability in the financial area. So this is where, again, they would work with the financial aid office at the college that they plan to attend. Initially submit the financial aid application as it requests, and then check with the college about special circumstances. And that's typically what it would be framed as on their website. Okay, timeline. When should we be doing what? So typically for senior students in high school, it will open as of October 1st. And that is also in line typically with when they are going to be applying for admission at the universities. So this gives them an opportunity to already know what universities and colleges they're planning to apply to, and be able to list up to 10 of those on their initial financial aid application submission. They can always add more once they've done the initial submission. And just knowing that, again, our priority deadline for California is March 2nd. Okay, the CSS profile also opens as of October 1st, again, for some of those private universities, but the deadline for it can be set by the university. So it can be sooner than our March 2nd deadline for California. So you always want to be mindful of checking websites, find out what applications are required and what is my timeline on that. And Cal Grant GPA verification, it does look at that. And our high schools will send that information automatically, electronically, for the students, so they don't have to do anything. And even the colleges, when they are going to be receiving Cal Grant as a continuing student with us, we will also be sending that information to the state to reestablish their eligibility based on their GPA. Students are encouraged to create a web grants for students account, because that way they are able to check their Cal Grant eligibility and be able to change their school that they had indicated would be their first choice, and maybe change it to a different school if they have changed their mind as to where they would be attending. So again, keeping the timeline in mind is very, very, very important. You do not want to miss deadlines, because if you miss a deadline, it could be missing out on a financial aid opportunity, which again, for free money, that's a big one. Okay, so this is really kind of important when applying for aid, knowing what to ask. And so again, this is really making sure you understand, based on the college, what their requirements are. Is there going to be additional forms to complete? Very likely there is. And so it depends on the school, but oftentimes through the application process, students can get selected at random for verification of the information provided. So this could mean that they would need to provide a tax return or verification of the members in the family, anything along those lines. It's nothing critical. It's usually a random process. But yes, you also want to make sure that if a student needs to provide additional documentation, they do not meet or miss that additional deadline. So again, meeting deadlines is really, really critical, even if it is a follow-up deadline. Okay, and just a little plug, the state of California has Cash for College events. This is a statewide initiative. And so when families need assistance with completing the application process, they are able to go to the website here for Cash for College and be able to find out if there are any local in-person or right now online offerings. The local high schools, because of their graduating seniors, often participate in this, as do the colleges themselves. So you can go in, put in your zip code and find out if there's an event near you. And usually this is for the big push up to March 2nd from the time we open October 1. Okay, what to take away from this? A lot of information, but it is so important to understand there is no magic potion for eligibility. You have to apply with the best information you have available. It is a self-certifying process. So they anticipate people are being forthcoming with their information. Just know that whether they are applying to a private school, a university, a community college, which they should hopefully be applying to all of those different systems. It really, the most important part is that they need to apply, and there is a type of financial aid for every student situation, even if it would be an unsubsidized loan that does not require financial need. So it's so important that students get through the process, making sure that they monitor their lifetime eligibility for Cal Grant and Pell Grant and understand all the differences in the types of programs, and know that there is financial aid that does not always have to be paid back. And so it's very important that students complete this process to at least see where they are at on eligibility. And oftentimes, if anything happens, that they might be able to get that fee or tuition waiver, which just really saves those upfront out-of-pocket expenses, which can be hundreds of dollars of savings if for that program alone and nothing else. Okay, just some information slides, some from the federal student aid website. So anything that is related to the federal financial aid, the grant programs, the loan program, additional scholarships, assistance tools, research tools, for scholarships, those kinds of things. And then also our California Student Aid Commission, and they have different information on some resources about how our financial aid works within the state. So Cal Grant, Middle Class Scholarship, also some resources to again, help students look for scholarships and that kind of thing. And again, anytime you get stuck on the application process, they also have help centers for either application. So you're always able to reach out to somebody if you need assistance. And that is it for our financial aid piece of the presentation. And then I'm going to turn it back over to Daniel for his follow-up information that he mentioned. Whoops.
Before you get away, Katie, I wanted to ask a couple of things. It looks like the whole process of getting money for school can be very daunting, and you've given a lot of resources. Say someone wanted to attend Mission College or one of the other schools, can they call your financial aid office for advice or help?
Absolutely. All the colleges have really extensive financial aid websites. Even if we are in person or not in person, we have staff with open hours. Again, whether it's via a online format or in person. We have information and links to apply, the steps to apply, information about the different programs. And of course, we always are available for them to reach out to us, ask questions. The staff is listed typically with our email addresses and phone numbers. So yes, we are there to provide whatever assistance we can when students are needing to apply and families have questions.
That's perfect. That's great. And especially this last year, it's probably been a unique one for some people. I mean, I know that there are probably a lot of families out there that aren't sure what to do because maybe parents lost their jobs, maybe people had to change jobs, things like that. And maybe they're a little unsure about how to fill out the application. Could they come to you or talk to you about help with those types of situations?
Absolutely. We all understand that things change, life changes. And so reaching out to make sure exactly how you should be approaching the application. Again, typically it's going to be as it requests, but when they realize they're providing 2019 income information and that no longer is the current situation or the number in the family has changed, any one of those little things that is changing the financial stability of the household is really what we want to bring to light in a more current format. So they would absolutely want to reach out to us to get that extra assistance. And oftentimes, they can find the basic information on our websites, but again, sometimes talking to somebody and making sure they understand what's going to be required to get through the process is just going to put them more at ease to know that, we are going to take changes into consideration.
That's great to know. Thank you so much. And thank you for all the information. We really appreciate it. I'm sure the families that are listening to this presentation are really going to benefit from it. And it opens up a lot of opportunities. So that's great. I'm going to wrap up real quickly. I just wanted to share a couple of things. One, like I mentioned earlier, is there is a scholarship that we are funding through the Parent Engagement Program. And you can go to their website to get more information, and I'm sure Jamie can share more with you as well. And we also understand now is really a tough time to do things like to save for college or just save for any future needs that your child might have. And whether they're 3 years old or 17 years old, we have a youth savings account. It's good until the child turns 18. We understand, like I said, the needs right now that our families are having. So we will put in the $50 to start the account for you. And that's really important because if you have a dedicated college account, we know that the child's more likely to go to college and they're even more likely to complete college as well. It pays 5% annual percentage yield, so it's a great rate. And you can get more details from the flyer or by contacting us at Excite Credit Union. Just make sure you use the code PARENTS2020. There are 2 fields if you apply online, and it's the second field that's important where we ask, how did you hear about us? So thanks, and Jamie, I'll turn it back to you.
Well, thank you so much, Katie and Daniel, for just presenting all these opportunities for the families and their students also who are keeping their dream alive. And, there was a lot of information today, and the slides will be available on our parent engagement website. You can see on the bottom of the slide there, our parentengagement.sccoe.org website will have a link for the Keeping the Dream Alive event, and you can find the slides there. You can also find this recording and also our feedback form. So thank you so much for the pleasure of having all this time spent with you, Katie, and also Daniel, for presenting these opportunities for our families. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.